reborn and returned. Zhao Heng intends to marry his true love as an equal wife. In my past life, I threatened suicide to tear them apart. Yet it only earned Zhao Heng's contempt. He married his true love, bore children with her, and they grew ever more devoted. While I died alone in the side courtyard, on the very day their child was born. This time around, I resolved to grant them their happiness. I snapped back to reality just as Zhao Heng entered. He looked exactly as I remembered, handsome and dashing, gentle as jade. Behind him followed a woman, delicate and refined. A faint smile graced her face. He walked straight past me to stand before his mother. The woman approached obediently and stood beside him. "Mother, look who it is!" My mother-in-law squinted, studying her for a long moment before exclaiming with delight. "Xu Yao? Is it really you? Xu Yao?" The woman called Xu Yao. Her eyes reddened, nodded. The three reunited after so long poured out their longing for one another. And I remained an outsider throughout. In my previous life, faced with the same scene, I'd been too tactless, insisting on meddling. In the end, I angered Zhao Heng and earned my mother-in-law's disdain. This time, I stood quietly in place, watching this touching scene. Only after a long while did my mother-in-law remember there were others in the room. Unable to vent her anger on them, she directed her frustration at me. Her words dripped with displeasure. "What are you standing there for? Don't you know any manners?" My husband, whom I hadn't seen in so long, finally looked at me, his expression displeased. "Why are you here?" I took a step back, bowed my head slightly, and offered a polite smile. "Then I shan't disturb you." I turned to leave, but just as I reached the doorway, a voice called out from behind me. "Wait. Don't leave yet. I need to speak with you." Turning back, I saw Zhao Heng holding that woman's hand. "I intend to take Xu Yao as my secondary wife." The figure before me gradually overlapped with memories from my past life. "Xu Yao and I have always been mutually affectionate. Marrying you was never my true intention. Now that the deed is done, I won't divorce you to remarry. But I do hope you'll consent and grant Xu Yao and me our wish." Surveying the room, their expressions ranged from shock to scorn to pity, yet not a trace of indignation. As if it were the most natural thing in the world. I offered a graceful smile. "Very well." He froze. Surprise etched across his face. I didn't linger to study each reaction. Stepping forward again, I walked swiftly toward the exit. My marriage to Zhao Heng had always been me reaching beyond my station. He was the heir to the Marquis' estate, I was a country peasant girl. In his youth, my father had saved the old Marquis' life. The old Marquis, moved by my father's simple kindness, personally promised that the Zhao and Yi families would become in-laws. Later, disaster struck our village, and my father passed away. On his deathbed, he produced a token left by the old Marquis. After settling his final affairs, I took the token to the capital. By then, Zhao Heng already had a beloved, Li Xu Yao. But the old Marquis was a man of his word. On his deathbed, he compelled Zhao Heng to marry me, making him swear an oath never to divorce his wife. I, too, had my own selfish motives. Truth be told, I was infatuated with Zhao Heng. That graceful young man, elegant as orchids and jade trees, one glance was enough to captivate me. I kept telling myself it would be fine. Once married, given enough time, even the coldest stone would eventually warm. But until my death, the one in his heart remained Li Xu Yao. To him, I was the sinner who tore him from her. 2 lifetimes have taught me much. My mind is no longer muddled, but crystal clear. After returning to my chambers, the maid who attended me hurried back, seeming displeased with my actions. She entered with a frown and said, "How could you agree to it? Though the young master dislikes you, sincerity can move mountains. One day, he will see your worth. She chattered on. I set down my teacup and cut her off. Chun Tao. How long have you served me? She hesitated, then answered promptly, 3 years. Indeed. 3 years. Yet you still haven't seen my worth. She knelt with a thud, her eyes reddening. This servant doesn't know how I've angered you. Please punish me. Chun Tao had originally served as a maid to my mother-in-law. After I entered the household, my mother-in-law bestowed her upon me. I believed I treated her with genuine kindness and generosity. Yet she repaid kindness with ingratitude. In my past life, it was she who stirred up trouble by my side, compelling me to risk my life to tear apart Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao. Later, Zhao Heng abandoned me. My mother-in-law despised me, and everyone bullied me. When I fell gravely ill and lay bedridden, she showed no concern. She left me to freeze to death. Many things I couldn't understand back then, I've come to grasp now. Chun Tao had always harbored feelings for Zhao Heng. She never truly helped me, she just saw my gentle nature as easy to manipulate. Had Li Shuyao entered the household instead, she would have had no chance at all. My gaze fell back upon her pitifully vulnerable face. Then so be it. For insubordination, 20 lashes across the face. She lifted her head, staring at me in shock, then covered her face with her hands. You suffered humiliation at the crown prince's hands, why take it out on me? I gave a cold laugh. So what if I take it out on you? No sooner had I spoken than the door swung open. Zhao Heng stood outside, his face flushed with anger. What are you doing? The moment Chun Tao saw Zhao Heng, she suddenly raised her hand and struck her own face hard. It's all this servant's fault. I've displeased the young mistress. I deserve to be punished. I deserve to be punished. She struck with all her might, and her face quickly swelled and reddened. Zhao Heng took 2 steps in one, grabbing her wrist before she could strike again. He glared at me coldly, his eyes filled with disgust. Yi Chao, don't you want to explain? Your Highness, please don't blame the young mistress. It's all this servant's fault. Chun Tao wept like a pear blossom in the rain, clinging desperately to Zhao Heng. Suddenly, another thought struck me. Does the young master feel pity? If so, perhaps I should give this maid to you. As I spoke, I studied Chun Tao's expression. Sure enough, a flicker of hope passed through her eyes at my words. Zhao Heng hesitated, his brow slightly furrowed. What are you talking about? He pushed Chun Tao away without showing emotion, then beckoned to the others. Take her away. Find a doctor to examine her. Right up to the doorway. Chun Tao's gaze toward me was like poison. I couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle. So now it's my fault. Only Zhao Heng and I remained in the room. He sat down before me. After a moment's hesitation, he said, I was thoughtless earlier. I shouldn't have embarrassed you in front of so many people. I know you're upset, but you shouldn't take it out on others. I didn't, I replied, not wanting to waste words. I asked directly, what did you want to talk to me about? He sat up straight, visibly tense. Are you truly willing to grant me and Shuyao our freedom? I found it both amusing and profoundly satisfying. If only I'd returned sooner. But it's not too late now. Just as when I first met him 3 years ago. I addressed him respectfully, Your Highness. Let us dissolve our marriage. Zhao Heng thought he'd misheard. After a long pause, he asked, say that again. Our marriage was never meant to be, our families were mismatched. You love another, and I refuse to be trapped in this stuffy marquise mansion, spending my life with someone who doesn't love me. So, we divorce. Spilling my heart's truth. I felt the heavy stone pressing on my chest finally lifted. To be fair, I harbored resentment toward Zhao Heng. But it wasn't hatred. I was an orphaned girl, sheltered by the Marquis's household, never wanting for food or clothing. But the events of my past life were real, undeniable. I couldn't pretend they meant nothing to me. Zhao Heng froze again. After a long pause, he said, "But I promised my father." The old Marquis had only said I couldn't divorce my wife, he never said I couldn't dissolve the marriage. I delivered my prepared speech. Yet to my surprise, he didn't agree outright. He abruptly stood, "Let me think." I nodded, knowing this couldn't be rushed. After Zhao Heng left, I summoned Chen Tao back, knowing I'd seen through her true colors. She stopped pretending, her gaze fixed on me as if she wanted to devour me whole. "You're truly strange," I said slowly. "These past 3 years, I've treated you well. That you show no gratitude is one thing, but to treat me as an enemy." Chen Tao sneered coldly. "Why? Because you're useless and couldn't keep the young master." She declared her ambition openly. I remained unruffled. "I just gave you a chance. You saw it yourself, the young master refused." I broke down the reasoning for her. But she was stubborn, convinced it was all my fault. I sighed. "Since you think I'm an inadequate mistress, why not try Lady Li's side? She's the young master's beloved. If you could stay by her side, you might find an opening." She remained silent, lowering her eyes in thought, knowing when to stop. I waved her back. "I harbor no hatred for Zhao Heng, but I never promised to spare Li Shuyao." The day I died coincided with the birthday of Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao's only son. The entire Marquis's residence was adorned with lanterns and decorations. Guests came and went, chatting and laughing in lively celebration. I was confined in a side courtyard. As evening approached, heavy snow began to fall. Everything within sight seemed wrapped in thick cotton. That was perhaps my calmest moment. I thought of my childhood in the countryside, of the flutter in my heart when I first met Zhao Heng, of my child who never came into this world. Zhao Heng and I had once conceived a child. It happened shortly after he brought Li Shuyao back. My unexpected pregnancy, by the calendar, must have been from that night before his departure. I knew Zhao Heng would never keep this child. Back then, I threatened suicide to tear them apart. My mother-in-law scolded me for being unreasonable. The capital's people called me jealous. I locked myself in my room day after day. No one noticed my pregnancy. I hid it carefully. But in the end, I couldn't keep him. The 5-month-old fetus had already taken shape. That was the first time I ever felt regret. Later, they reunited anyway. My mother-in-law confined me to the side courtyard. From then on, everyone remembered only Li Shuyao, forgetting Yi Chao. I pondered much until Li Shuyao entered the courtyard carrying a lamp. She was more beautiful than ever, like a delicate flower blooming in the snow. I looked at my own rough hands and felt ashamed. Dragging my sickly body, I whispered to her, "Why are you here?" She suddenly smiled. "Ming'er is turning 1 today." Ming'er was the name of her child. I listened quietly as she continued. "A few days ago, I went to Xianghua Temple to pray for him. The abbot said a parent's blessings flow through their children. I wish Ming'er a life of ease and joy. But when I think of what I've done, I can't find peace." As she spoke these words, she lifted her eyes to meet mine. My heart skipped a beat, my pulse racing. "Yi Chao," she said, "if you meet your end, tell your child not to come haunting my Ming'er." Her expression was eerily calm, as if she were discussing everyday matters. But to me, it felt like a bolt from the blue. Tears fell one by one, blurring my vision. "It was you! You killed my child!" She still smiled. "It was me. I spread the jealousy rumors too. I killed your child. I bribed the doctor treating you." At first, he refused outright. He insisted your child was healthy and that forcing medication might endanger the mother. I threatened his family. And he agreed. I thought you'd die with your child. But he pitied you as a mother and didn't want to involve you. He let you live. With each word she spoke, my heart ached more. Finally, I vomited a mouthful of dark red blood. She, however, exhaled a long breath of relief. Her face softening into a relaxed smile, the abbot said, "To know one's fault and correct it is truly great. Now that I've told you this and sought your forgiveness, I'm certain our family will find peace and prosperity henceforth." She picked up the lantern set aside, adjusted the fox fur cloak around her shoulders, and turned to leave. Midway, she halted and turned back. "Oh, and the food the maid brought today, I poisoned it." Lowering her eyes, she murmured, "I couldn't wait for you to join that child underground and seek his forgiveness. This was the only way. Yi Chao, you won't blame me, will you?" My senses gradually faded. In my final moment, all I saw was Li Shuyao's smile, filled with malice. As evening approached, the matron who attended my mother-in-law called me to the front hall for dinner. This was customary in the Marquis's household. Usually, my mother-in-law would sit at the head of the table, with me serving beside her. Only after she finished eating could I take my place. At first, I constantly worried I might displease her. Later, I learned to read her expressions and reactions. Yet she remained dissatisfied with me. Over time, I came to understand, in her heart, no one was worthy of Zhao Heng. Truthfully, I never intended to repay her kindness with ulterior motives. Though born to peasant stock, I had studied the teachings of Confucius and Mencius, understanding propriety, righteousness, integrity, and honor. My reasons for coming to the capital were twofold. First, my hometown had suffered calamity, leaving me no means to survive. Second, I dared not disobey my father's dying wish. When I learned Prince Zhao Heng had a beloved, I spoke to Lady Ho, my mother-in-law. I have no intention of disrupting the match between the Crown Prince and Miss Li. I only ask that the Ho household grant me a few taels of silver, be it for trade or marriage, so I may live on. But my mother-in-law refused. Grasping my hand, she wept. The Li family has fallen like a toppled tree scattering its monkeys. If Heng becomes associated with them, his promising future will be ruined. How could I, as his mother, bear to see that? Only then did I learn that Li Shuyao's father had sided prematurely in the succession struggle, incurring the emperor's displeasure. The emperor made an example of them, banishing the entire Li family to a harsh, frigid land. My mother-in-law was the most astute judge of the times. How could she possibly agree to let Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao stay together? She didn't know how to tear them apart. But I happened to arrive bearing the token of their promise. For the old Marquis, a pledge meant everything. Using this as a pretext, the mother-in-law forced Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao to sever ties. In the many years that followed, Zhao Heng promised me we would build a good life together. Yet a single letter from Li Shuyao would always make him think of her. Now, the emperor has passed away, and the third prince ascended the throne. Li Shuyao's family, credited with supporting the dragon's rise, had their official positions restored and became close ministers to the emperor. Behind my back, Zhao Heng went to bring her back. Thus, my mother-in-law's attitude changed drastically. I arrived precisely on time, expecting to see a scene of perfect harmony. Unexpectedly, Li Shuyao was chatting animatedly with my mother-in-law, while Zhao Heng sat off to the side, looking as if he'd lost his mind. I deliberately stomped my footsteps loudly to draw their attention. My mother-in-law looked displeased. "How can you keep a guest waiting?" Hearing this, I smiled. How can Miss Li be considered a guest? By rights, I should be calling her sister. The mother-in-law paused, not rebutting but instead stealing glances at Li Shuyao's expression. She too wanted to know, after what had happened. Could Li Shuyao still genuinely marry Zhao Heng? Li Shuyao's smile nearly cracked. She looked to Zhao Heng for support, pleading for his backing. But he remained frozen in place, his gaze fixed on me. Li Shuyao's teeth nearly ground to dust. Women, once entangled in love, become foolish. Throughout the meal, I was likely the only one truly savoring the food. I finished quickly, bid my farewells, and started walking back. But halfway there, Zhao Heng followed. "Zhao Zhao," he called from behind. I turned to find him standing beneath the bamboo shadows. "The divorce settlement was unfair to you." Instead of anger, I smiled. "What is fairness? What is unfairness? You disregarded me, sought to marry Miss Li as a secondary wife. Is that fair? I refused to share a husband with another woman and petitioned for divorce. Is that unfair? That's not what I meant. I promised my father." I cut him off. "A woman's devotion is beyond words. You do not love me, yet you confine me to the inner courtyard. That is injustice." His eyes widened abruptly. I pressed him further. "Was it Miss Li who first proposed taking a secondary wife?" He gave an almost imperceptible nod. Just as I suspected. Li Shuyao must have hated me intensely. A noble woman from a prestigious family. Defeated by a village girl, she became the laughingstock of the entire capital. A woman's reputation is paramount. With such a stain upon her, she could never arrange a marriage. Even after the Li family regained their official positions, she could not find a suitable match. Thus, she returned to Zhao Heng's side. Love was one reason, another was that he was her best option. Yet she remained deeply resentful, devising the concubine arrangement. It preserved Zhao Heng's reputation while keeping me under her watchful eye, tormenting me daily. The glory would be hers, the shame would be mine. Love for her, loathing for me. She tormented me for years, finally finding some measure of balance through me. My gaze bypassed Zhao Heng, settling on the stone archway behind him. I deliberately raised my voice. "Does the crown prince not wish to part with me?" Zhao Heng froze in place, staring at me with utter shock. After a long moment, I heard his voice. "I see." He staggered away. After he left, I approached the stone archway. On the emerald green grass, a pair of women's footprints stood out starkly, humming an unnamed tune. I returned to my room in high spirits and retired for the night. The next morning, I received the divorce papers, along with a banknote for 500 taels of silver and some loose coins. When I arrived at the Marquis's residence, I carried a small bundle. When I left, I carried the same bundle. For these past 3 years, I've lived solely for others. Now, I intend to live for myself. Li Shuyao put on a show of bidding me farewell. Buried in Zhao Heng's embrace, she wept bitterly. "It's all my fault. I truly never meant to tear you two apart." Zhao Heng could only pat her back, murmuring quiet words of comfort. I watched coldly. From the very beginning, she never intended to let me leave the Marquis's residence. Now she was putting on this false display. Last night, the person hiding by the stone archway was Li Shuyao. My question to Zhao Heng made her feel threatened. No doubt she sought him out last night, hinting he should agree to the divorce. That's why I received the divorce papers so quickly. She probably thought she had 1,000 ways to torment me, without needing to confine me to the Marquis's residence. But she didn't know that once I left the Marquis's residence, I found a way to survive. After leaving the Marquis's residence, I entrusted an agency to find a shopfront in the city. It wasn't large, but it was clean and tidy. I had already made up my mind to open an embroidery shop. One day, when I went out to buy supplies for the shop, I happened upon a procession of carriages and horses. I didn't know which noble family it was, entering the capital from outside the city. I was about to take another route when a child suddenly darted out from nowhere, running straight into the middle of the road. A galloping steed was about to trample his small body. Without a second thought, I lunged forward, shielding him beneath me. The expected pain never came. Slowly lifting my head, I saw a man seated atop the horse, handsome in appearance, with an air of effortless grace. From the sedan chair behind him, a woman peered out. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, a wave of dizziness washed over me. Darkness engulfed my vision, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a clinic. Two people stood by the bedside, the very man and woman from before. Li Shuyao and her brother, Li Muyao. I had completely forgotten today was the day the Li family returned to the capital. Li Shuyao had been brought back by Zhao Heng, so she was staying temporarily at the Marquis's residence, while the rest of the Li family had only arrived today. Seeing me awake, Li Shuyao lunged forward. Her eyes were wide with fury, making her look like a madwoman. "You're pregnant." "Why?" I froze, then remembered. Tears spilled instantly. Li Muyao stepped forward, pulling her back. He whispered sternly, "What manner is this?" Li Shuyao finally stopped, but her gaze on me was venomous. "Why are you pregnant? He clearly said he didn't love you." I covered my mouth and coughed softly. He also said he wanted to build a life with me. My words enraged her anew. She lunged forward again, only to be stopped by Li Muyao. "Mingbo, take the young lady home." The old man called Mingbo stepped forward and led the reluctant Li Shuyao away. In the room, only Li Muyao and I remained. Holding my stomach, I quietly shifted backward. "What do you want?" I asked him warily. He took a step back. "How are you?" "Shuyao is spoiled. I apologize on her behalf." This response caught me off guard, yet I remained guarded. "I'm fine. You may go." He seemed to want to say more, but in the end, he merely bowed and walked toward the door. Only after he was far away did I breathe a sigh of relief. By the time I returned to my lodgings, night had fallen. The doctor had prescribed several doses of pregnancy-nourishing herbs. Alone in the pitch-black room, I sat with my hands pressed over my belly. The child's arrival had brought me joy. I buried my face in the table and wept for a long time. When I'd cried enough, I lit a candle, made a bowl of noodles, and swallowed them down with my tears. When Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao married, I bought myself an abortion pill. She looked at me with worry. I reassured her it was fine, that she needn't worry. She was a mute girl I'd bought for 2 taels of silver. Her original name was Lady. She had endured a harsh life at home, unloved by her father, neglected by her mother, and constantly ordered about by her younger brother. Seeing her plight, I bought her freedom and renamed her Xiaoxi, meaning small joy, hoping for peace and happiness. May she and I find peace and joy from now on. The medicine was bitter, so bitter it made my tears fall one by one. I could distinctly feel something leaving me. Xiaoxi clutched my hand as I drifted between lucidity and haze. In the end, every organ in my body twisted in agony. Everything before my eyes blurred, and all I could hear was Xiaoxi's shrieks. When sensation returned, I saw Xiaoxi dragging someone through the doorway. He stood tall against the light. As he drew nearer, I recognized him, Li Muyao. I wanted him to leave, but I lacked even the strength to speak. Helplessly, I watched as he wrapped me entirely in his cloak, then carried me toward the clinic. Gathering my last ounce of strength, I clutched his collar. "Take me to that doctor from last time." He nodded. I closed my eyes, relieved. I felt like a tiny boat adrift at sea. When I awoke, Li Muyao was still there. My hand instinctively went to my lower abdomen. It was flat. I knew he was truly gone. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. Even in this new life, we were still not meant to be. Hearing the sound, Li Muyao walked to my bedside. I stared at the ceiling, my heart as cold as ashes. Now, Miss Li, oh, I should call you Princess Consort, you can finally rest easy. He seemed about to speak. I whipped my head around, glaring at him with eyes wide with fury. Tell Li Shuyao the child is gone. She needn't target me anymore. I propped myself up with my hands, desperate to leave this place. He stepped forward to grab my arm, but I violently shook off his hand and shouted for Xiao Shi. Xiao Shi rushed in from the doorway and supported me with her entire body. Closing my eyes, utterly exhausted, I whispered, Xiao Shi, let's go home. Later, through Xiao Shi's gestures and my own guesswork, only then did I learn that on that day, when I hemorrhaged, she panicked and rushed out onto the street. By chance, she saw Li Muyao patrolling. Without a second thought, she knelt before him, begging him to save me. Li Muyao had met Xiao Shi before, so he knew immediately that something had happened to me. The child was gone, but life must go on. I gathered my strength and devoted myself entirely to running the embroidery workshop, drawing on a lifetime's worth of experiences beyond others. I pieced together scattered memories from my past life, what was popular in the capital, what noble ladies favored. These insights made the embroidery shop thrive. Li Shuyao never came looking for trouble. I peacefully tended my little shop, living my own life, until Li Shuyao and Zhao Heng appeared. They arrived while I was taking inventory. As usual, I invited customers to browse freely when I heard Li Shuyao's voice. Every noble lady in the capital has an embroidered handkerchief from Camuge these days. I can't let myself be outdone, she said coquettishly. Zhao Heng's voice followed immediately. If you like them, buy a few more. Of course. My face stiffened as I lifted my gaze, locking eyes with him. Zhao? Li Shuyao also turned, her expression shifting the moment she saw me. Yi Zhao. Why is it you? Xiaomu Pavilion is my new shop, why shouldn't it be me? She hooked her arm through Zhao Heng's, flashing a showy smile. Who'd have thought you'd end up in such a state? Shuyao. Zhao Heng looked at her, displeasure in his eyes. She quickly sweetened her smile. I know I was wrong. I just felt uneasy and couldn't resist taking a few jabs at Miss Yi. Since that's the case, how about I buy a few more handkerchiefs to make amends? I spoke coldly. Xiaomu Pavilion doesn't do business with you. Please leave. What do you mean by that? I didn't want to engage with her further. Turning my gaze to Zhao Heng, I said coldly, Your Highness, please take the crown princess and leave. In the end, Zhao Heng left with Li Shuyao. Before leaving, Li Shuyao declared brazenly, Yi Chao. Just wait. Not only will I buy handkerchiefs from the morning-evening pavilion, I'll carry them with me at all times. You can only watch helplessly. Chun Tao was left behind in the shop. It wasn't that I refused to serve Li Shuyao, I simply detested her haughty, bossy demeanor. Zhao Heng kept Chun Tao behind to let me select a few handkerchiefs for her to take back. Understanding his intent, I carefully chose several popular ones, packed them in a box, and handed it to Chun Tao. Chun Tao remained as before, scholars, farmers, artisans, merchants. The crown prince's consort was right about that. But I'm no longer some young mistress for her to mold as she pleases. You must have some skill to have become Li Shuyao's maid. Li Shuyao managed to keep Zhao Heng. Yet you're still just a maid? You're even worse off than I am. Showing no progress whatsoever. I knew exactly how to hit Chun Tao where it hurt. Furious, she snatched the box and stormed out. I teased from behind, given Zhao Heng's feelings for Li Shuyao. You'll likely never have a chance, unless he loses consciousness and mistakes you for her. But think about it, before, you could make Zhao Heng look at you with favor just because of your face. Now that the real thing is back, Do you really think he'll still see you? Chen Tao turned and smiled at me, not necessarily. I'd said my piece. How Chen Tao interpreted it was her own business. Chen Tao bore a certain resemblance to Li Shuyao. Otherwise, when Lady Ho bestowed Chen Tao upon me, Zhao Heng wouldn't have readily agreed. After autumn arrived, several rains fell, and the weather turned cold. Under Xiao Shi's attentive care, I'd actually gained a few pounds. The noble ladies gathered in my shop, discussing the latest happenings in the capital. The protagonists of the story, naturally, were Zhao Heng and Li Shuyao. Chen Tao had indeed climbed into Zhao Heng's bed. Rumor had it that after a quarrel with Li Shuyao, he'd drunk himself into a stupor and mistaken Chen Tao for her. Madame Ho waved her hand decisively, ordering Zhao Heng to take Chen Tao as his concubine. They recounted the tale vividly, while I kept my eyes downcast, sitting obediently behind the counter doing my accounts. At the most dramatic part, one of the noble ladies whispered to me, "That Chen Tao, does she really look like Li Shuyao?" I smiled faintly, hard to say. My answer didn't dampen her spirits. She continued chattering away. My fingers flicked briskly across the abacus beads, my voice light and cheerful. Another month passed. Deep into autumn, news reached the Ho residence. Chen Tao was pregnant. Rumor had it that upon hearing the news, Li Shuyao smashed half the marquis's mansion. Though exaggerated, it couldn't have been much better. The marquis's household was thrown into chaos, and the marquise was so enraged she took to her bed. I listened, but said little. After all, it was ancient history. What I hadn't expected was to see Zhao Heng that evening. He arrived just as I was preparing to close up shop. After just 2 months apart, he'd grown noticeably thinner. No longer the dashing young man of before. I paused, then instinctively offered, "Come in and sit a while?" It was merely polite, yet he nodded in agreement. After a moment's thought, I reconsidered. Perhaps we should go to Yingxiang Pavilion instead. After locking up the shop and preparing to leave, he said, "No need. You should head home early." I paused, reopened the shop, lit a candle, and rummaged through a box until I found a pouch. "This contains calming herbs," I said. "It's embroidered with hibiscus flowers, symbolizing happiness and fulfillment. Take it." He lifted his gaze to meet mine, his expression so complex it was impossible to decipher. After a long moment, I heard him say, "All right. You look healthier than before. And you've gained some weight," he remarked. My heart skipped a beat. Instinctively, I reached to touch my stomach, then forced my hand back down. "Yes," I replied. "I suppose when life brings good news, one feels more spirited. When the spirit is lifted, the complexion improves too." He gave a reassuring smile and turned to leave. Not long after Zhao Heng sought me out, Li Shuyao also came calling. She still carried that same arrogant, domineering air as before. Yet she looked noticeably haggard. No longer the delicate flower she once was, but rather like a blossom on the verge of withering. She brought a large group with her, intent on smashing my shop the moment she arrived. She was terrified. Yet she stood firmly in front of me, refusing to let anyone harm me. I patted her head and mouthed for her to find Li Muyao. She understood my meaning and hurried out. Li Shuyao probably thought a mute girl posed no threat and didn't stop her. I sat at the table and poured myself a cup of tea. "What do you want with me? Don't you know what you've done?" I shook my head. She seemed to hate me intensely. Her eyes bloodshot. "Yi Chao. I underestimated you. You managed to make Zhao Heng obsess over you. It was just a pouch, I merely touched it. And he became frantic. You wretch. Wretch." I sighed, speaking with earnest concern. I no longer have feelings for Zhao Heng. Otherwise, the child. I didn't finish my sentence. But Li Shuyao understood my meaning. Yet my words didn't calm her. Instead, they seemed to strike a nerve, and she grew even more frenzied. You dare speak of children to me? She gritted her teeth, a single clear tear rolling down her cheek. My heart skipped a beat. You. She waved her hand, dismissing everyone around us. Only the two of us remained in the room. As you wished, she said. I can never have children again. She glared at me viciously, trying to read something in my face. I looked surprised. What are you talking about? Her expression wavered slightly. You don't know? Know what? She didn't answer my question, muttering instead, impossible. Impossible. How could it not be you? I instantly understood her meaning. You suspect I drugged you, causing you to become infertile? Isn't that it? She screamed. Just then, Xiao Shi entered with Li Muyao. Behind them followed Zhao Heng, his face frozen in shock. Shu Yao. Is what you're saying true? This farce finally came to an end. Zhao Heng staggered out, his eyes vacant. Li Shuyao chased after him, weeping. As he left, I grabbed her hand and wrote the character for spring in her palm. I believe Li Shuyao will come to understand. I have no ties, no attachments. I'm alone in the world. I have no reason to harm her. But Chun Tao is different. She had already incurred Li Shuyao's contempt by sleeping with others. Then, her pregnancy only served to wound Li Shuyao's heart even deeper. Li Shuyao was unable to bear children. Chun Tao's child would be the sole heir of the home mansion. Her status would naturally rise accordingly. Chun Tao stands to gain the most. Only after everyone had left did I turn to Li Muyao. How did the crown prince end up with you? He stared at me intently, while I maintained a composed expression. After a moment, he averted his gaze and replied, Today is the Double Ninth Festival. His Majesty ascended Mount Huayang to survey the distant landscape. The crown prince and I were ordered to accompany him, ensuring the emperor's safety. My mouth opened slightly. How come I never heard about this? It was a secret mission. Very few knew about it. The crown prince and I only received word this morning. I nodded. Well, that was quite a coincidence. Hearing this, he glanced at me again. I shrugged, letting him observe me. Winter always arrived earlier in the capital than elsewhere. It felt like only a blink of an eye. Yet 5 months had already passed. I've always been sensitive to the cold. And when the weather turns chilly, minor ailments plague me. Now that I have some silver, I've been thinking of spending the winter in Jiangnan. In past years, I'd hinted at this to Zhao Heng, but he always found excuses. Now that I'm alone, I'm free from such constraints. As soon as the cold set in, Xiao Shi and I began packing our belongings and arranging for carriages and horses. The shop remained open, its operations entrusted to Qiao Wang. Qiao Wang had been cast off by her husband and struggled to survive in the city. I took her in. Her embroidery skills were nothing short of divine. She had been with me for nearly half a year, and I trusted her implicitly. When the first snow of winter fell, Xiao Shi and I boarded the carriage bound for the south. Gazing at the capital's gray, hazy sky, I curved my lips. The tide had turned. In Jiangnan, I gave birth to a child. I named him Yi Wei. Wei, unique, singular, and meticulous. When little Wei was born, unlike other newborns, he didn't wail. Instead, he stared with eyes as bright as grapes and giggled softly. I knew he had come to find me again. The charade I performed before Li Muyao was merely to lower Li Shuyao's guard, ensuring I could deliver the child safely. How could I abandon a child who had come to me across 2 lifetimes? It has been over half a year since arriving in Jiangnan. When we came, snow and wind filled the sky. When we return, spring will fill Jiangnan. The distance between the capital and Jiangnan was vast, so vast that news took half a year to reach us. In the end, Chun Town never gained status through her child. Li Shuyao murdered her, taking both lives. As for Li Shuyao herself, she became known throughout the capital as a poisonous woman, a jealous harlot, for plotting against her concubine and her illegitimate son. But her crimes went far deeper. She murdered her own husband. It was said that, knowing she could never conceive, her twisted mind drove her to seek medicine from a physician, robbing Zhao Heng forever of his chance to be a father. The Marquis's wife was driven to her death by grief. Li Shuyao was confined to a side courtyard, never to step outside again for the rest of her life. I sat beneath the pear tree, cradling Wei Ge as pear blossoms drifted down in a soft shower. Heaven's justice is clear, retribution never fails. The journey back to the capital was arduous, with frequent stops along the way. We finally reached the capital in June. Qianyang had managed the embroidery workshop exceptionally well. Seeing us return, she wept with joy. I handed Wei Ge to her, hold him. She took him with the utmost care, as if cradling a precious treasure. Qianyang had been divorced by her in-laws precisely because she bore no sons. When I was pregnant, she cared for me more meticulously than she cared for herself. Wei Ge was, in a way, half her child too. No sooner had I returned than Zhao Heng came looking for me. This didn't surprise me. I'd never intended to conceal my return to the capital. He had now inherited the old Marquis's title, becoming the new Marquis. When Zhao Heng entered, I was cradling Wire, playing with him. He stood in the doorway. His eyes reddened. He looked thinner than before, yet far more composed. His gaze held more depth than I remembered. Holding the child, I curtsied gracefully, Your Lordship. He strode forward and steadied me. Zhao Zhao. His voice trembled. I bore Wei Ge without telling you. I pray the Marquis will not hold it against me. He shook his head frantically. How could I? How could I? After a long moment, he finally looked at Wei Ge in my arms. Wei Ge? Is it the Wei from Precious and Splendid? I shook my head. The Wei of unique and exceptional. Yi Wei. What a beautiful name. Hearing him say Yi Wei, I was surprised. I had assumed he would naturally assume Wei Ge bore the Zhao surname. He didn't press further, only urging me to rest well. Just as he had arrived, he departed like the wind. I had no intention of stopping Zhao Heng from acknowledging Wei Ge, but I hadn't anticipated it happening so swiftly. Within days, an imperial edict arrived from the palace. Wei Ge inherited the title of crown prince, while I was granted the rank of first-class noble consort. This arrangement was unprecedented throughout the entire Great Zhou. He inherited the Zhao family's noble title, yet bore the surname Yi. As for me, though I had long since divorced Zhao Heng, I was now ennobled as a noble consort through my status as a merchant's daughter. I had no idea what Zhao Heng had done to achieve this, but the cost must have been enormous. Shortly after my investiture, I encountered Li Muyao once more. At that time, he was journeying westward with his entire family. I heard the emperor deemed the Li family's achievements too great, overshadowing his own, and thus banished them to the frontier once more. Li Muyao led a chestnut horse, clad in black armor, just as he had been when we first met. If Shuyao possessed half your intelligence, she wouldn't have ended up in this predicament. I feigned incomprehension and offered no reply. He smiled, whether it was pregnancy, the potion, or stumbling upon Shuyao's infertility, it's all too coincidental. I saw the words you wrote in the palm of her hand. Connect all the anomalies, and the whole picture becomes clear. But rest assured. He mounted his horse with a deft leap. The wind rustled his cloak. Yi Chao. Farewell. Hoofbeats echoed. Li Muyao was right. After leaving the Marquis's residence, I began orchestrating everything. At the embroidery workshop, I deliberately refused to take Li Shuyao's business. I knew her temperament well. The more I barred her from doing something, the more she would insist on doing it. She would wear my embroidered handkerchief daily, flaunting it before everyone, telling all that Yi Chao was merely a defeated foe beneath her. Yet that handkerchief was prepared especially for her. The silk thread used in that handkerchief had been soaked in medicine beforehand. That medicine was potent but evaporated quickly. By the time Li Shuyao sensed something was amiss, there was no evidence left to find. The pouch I gave Zhao Heng used the same method. As for Li Shuyao coming to find me, I instructed Xiao Shi to seek out Li Muyao. That too relied entirely on memories from my past life. I knew Zhao Heng was with her, and I deliberately let Zhao Heng overhear. Later, however, I hadn't anticipated that Li Shuyao would harbor the same intentions as me. I just don't know whether Zhao Heng became infertile because of my medicine or because of Li Shuyao. On Wei Guer's birthday, I went to see Li Shuyao. She was confined in a side courtyard, raving mad. The Li family had long since abandoned her. After all, in great clans, children, especially daughters, were never in short supply. Standing in the courtyard, I looked up at the square patch of sky. Some people, no matter how long they live, never escape this small world. When Wire turned 10, Zhao Heng fell gravely ill and soon passed away. Unable to vent her anger on others, she directed it at me. He had aged terribly over the years. We rarely met, only on Wire's birthday each year would he come to sit for a while. He never appeared before me, yet I knew he watched me daily from outside the embroidery workshop. I pretended not to notice. Perhaps it was a final burst of strength, for he seemed much more alert. He held my hand and chattered on at length. Finally, he said, "Zhao Zhao, if only back then, we had truly lived our lives well." He paused there, lowering his eyes. He chuckled softly. What ifs? There are no such things. He held out his palm, where lay a worn pouch embroidered with hibiscus flowers. Chao Zhao, is this what you wished for? In that instant, tears poured down my face. He knew everything. In my previous life, as I lay dying, I heard Li Shuyao say, "Yi Chao, do you think Zhao Heng knew nothing of this?" Yes. He knew everything. I suppose. In the end, I still harbored hatred toward him. Later, my business grew immensely. Embroideries, ready-made garments, fabrics. The embroiderers and shopkeepers in my stores were all pitiful women abandoned by their families, their husbands, by this cruel society. It took me 2 lifetimes to finally break free. But I wanted to bring more people out with me. The end.